I'm Joe Gigliotti, PhD, and I am your guide for this journey you are about to embark on. Now, to survive here in this generation, you're going to have to know a few things. Come along for the ride. I will show you how to live. And welcome to another edition of How to Live. I am your host, your professor, your guide, your teacher, Joe Gigliotti, PhD. And today, we have a very, very important lesson to teach you. And that, hold on. I don't know where to put wasn't prepared to start this. We're going to teach you how to be organized. Yes, a very important lesson in life is how to be organized, knowing where you're going to go and just being ready for anything that comes your way, being prepared. And our first lesson in today's episode of How to Live is very, very vital to successful life. And that is to respect the lady. Ladies do so much in our world. They cook, they clean, they work, they do everything and anything that you can ever imagine. So make sure in this lesson that you learn how to respect the lady. Respect the lady.
Here's to the ladies, the fair and the weak. Fair they are, we'll all admit. But who dares call them weak? Our modern girls play as hard and with as much vitality and stamina as any man. How do they do it? Where do they find all that energy, that seemingly inexhaustible store of pep and ginger? What is that whipcord resilience that lets the weaker sex play half the night, then bob up clear-eyed, ready for the next morning's work? This frail creature strikes her typewriter keys about 40,000 times a day, spaces 7,000 times, shifts to capitals and returns the carriage more than 1,000 times each. Altogether, a few ounces at a time, she exerts more than 5 tons of pressure on her dainty fingertips in one day's work. And any way you look at it, women's work is not for sissies. Most men would have a hard time of it if they were to change jobs with wife, mother, or girlfriend. The homemaker walks miles every day, from sink to icebox, from cupboard to stove, and from kitchen to dining table. Let's use some very special photography to compress the whole job of preparing a meal into a few seconds of time, to see how many steps it really takes to get dinner on the table. Remember, this is a hurry-up picture of just one meal out of more than 1,000. Is that what you'd call a blitz meal? Even an efficiency expert would be staggered by the amount of chasing around and indoor road work that the little woman takes as a matter of course. There's the stair climbing event, for example, usually accomplished full tilt and with an armload of brooms, mops, blankets, and sundry household paraphernalia. Here's another hurry-up picture of the clinging vine whizzing through a day's program that would leave the average mountaineer gasping for breath. Each trip upstairs is the equivalent of lifting her own weight 12 feet. And at the rate of 20 trips a day, that's lifting about 12 tons of weight. Who said weaker sex? Ironing is another kind of work that's a lot of little jobs all rolled into one. Just to iron one of hubby's shirts, for instance. the iron may have to be lifted 20 or 30 times. And since a flat iron weighs about as much as a brick, a day's ironing actually uses just about as much muscle as bricklaying. Flattening a towel or wielding a trowel, even Steven. Had your iron today, lady? Because men are beginning to realize how much lifting and pushing the little woman has to do around the house, more and more muscle savers are being designed to make the little jobs easier. It's one thing to make 6,000 separate scrubbing motions over a tub of clothes, and quite another to push a button that does all the work. Here's another example of sheer brute force. Now, let's make a super scientific test. You'll notice that this girl is wearing a very special thimble. In fact, it isn't a thimble at all, but a gadget of springs and levers to measure the amount of force needed to sew on a button. And it's called an ergometer. According to the ergometer dial, it takes 18 units of force to push the needle through the cloth just once. In sewing stitch by stitch, that work adds up. Any man will admit that's a lot of work when it's called to his attention in the right way. And this is one way of calling it to his attention. This hurry-up picture shows that a stitch in time doesn't always save 9. And anyway, who wants to save 9 stitches when a machine can do all the work? A sewing machine is really an amazing invention, especially when you stop to think that a man invented it. Yet it's simple when you know how it works. We'll slow this one down so that for the first time on a theater screen, we can all see exactly what goes on inside a sewing machine. Well, there's the needle with a little loop of thread running through the eye. That's the eye right there close to the point. The needle carries the thread down through the cloth. At the same time, underneath the cloth, another little loop of thread is being carried in a moving carriage called a shuttle. The shuttle moves past the needle. The loops of thread cross each other and form a smooth stitch. And so, that's the way a sewing machine takes the place of a lot of needless needle nudging and keeps everyone in stitches. Amazing. In the early days of motoring, no woman in her right mind would tackle the job of starting the engine because the job had to be done the hard way. Let George do it was the slogan. And ever since, men have bragged about being the better drivers. Then the muscle savers got to work, and the self-starter put the woman driver behind the wheel instead of in the back seat. But even recently, a motor car demanded a certain amount of athletic prowess on the part of the driver. For example, in shifting gears. Let's hook up one of these work measuring machines or ergometers to this old-fashioned gear shift lever to see how much muscle it needed to run through the gears. 90 units. Starting and stopping, parking and backing up on a full day's driving amounted to more than a ton of pushing plus about a city block of reaching. Putting the shift lever up by the steering wheel would cut down the amount of reaching. But with such a short lever, it would be even more work to shift the gears. In fact, more than 100 units. To make this job easier, some sort of machine was needed to take over the muscle work of moving the gears in and out of mesh. Yet, because the speed of the car and the conditions of load are never twice quite the same, a certain amount of human judgment would help to shift gears quietly and smoothly. A muscle-saving engineer who went to work on this two-sided problem found that the vacuum produced inside the motor car engine could develop plenty of power to do the actual work. And by means of a super-sensitive control, the driver could still be the real gear-shifting boss. The sensitive control can regulate the pressure in a powerful vacuum chamber so that the slightest movement of the lever will bring about a strong push in a desired direction. A push that can be controlled to follow the movement of the lever with infinite exactness. This device, connected to the gears of a motor car, can do 80% of this work of shifting, yet leave enough for the driver to sense the response of the gears as they move smoothly into place. Now let's use that ergometer gadget again to see how much undesirable exercise we've saved this member of the fair and so-called weaker sex. Now the dial shows about 30 units, only a few ounces of push with the vacuum gear shift. And if you stop to think about it, that's a vast improvement when it's multiplied by the amount of expert driving that our American girls do nowadays. Now that the muscle savers are busy, cutting down the amount of unnecessary work for women and for men, we'll all have more energy left for playtime. But there are still plenty of jobs left for the ergometer and the work-saving scientists to tackle. Think of all the energy that our charming millions spend in keeping beautiful. And if science is so darn wonderful, why doesn't some genius build a contraption like this?
Okay, now that you know how to respect ladies, we're going to move on to our next lesson here in how to be organized. And that is another very important lesson. And it is another B. This one is B. Responsible. Be responsible.
And his things, his clothes and his toys, and one very he is using things that belong to his school. Don't you think it's fun making things like this? Andy does. Miss Ballard is pleased. But now it's time for the children to return to their desks. They're going to practice writing. Andy likes that. He likes to write. He'll hurry back to his desk. But Andy forgot things. It's bad your teacher is disappointed in you when you don't seem to... After school, Andy doesn't feel like playing with his friends, but he wants to do something. Now what does he see? This is Fred. He isn't one of Andy's regular friends. He's older. But Andy's thinking Fred might be a friend, and Fred's thinking that Andy may be almost big enough. If Andy can have an older boy as a friend, then nobody can call him baby anymore. So he asks Fred to come and see his tadpoles. He has 2 live ones. Fred might like to see the tadpoles sometime. Then Andy tells Fred about something else he has, something he received as a present. Fred would like to see that. Go to Andy's house. This is Andy's room. Here's Andy with Fred. And here are Andy's tadpoles. See? Oh, they're dead. Now Andy remembers he hasn't thought to feed them for many days. And that was one of his responsibilities. But he can still show Fred his special present. That's what Fred came to see. If Andy can only find it. His very best thing of all. He just has to find it. Because Fred might not believe him, and Fred says he should have known better than to come home with a little kid. Now Andy's really alone. And look at this. His jet airplane. Poor Andy. Won't he ever learn to take care of things? Here's June, Andy's sister. She wants to play. But Andy says no. It seems Andy just can't get along with anybody today. Anybody but Mother. Maybe Mother knows where Andy's special present is. No, she doesn't. But she does know that something is troubling Andy. What is it? So Andy tells her about what happened at school, and about Fred and the tadpoles and losing his present and, well, why do things like that happen? Mother says, well, Andy, why do you think? Because Mother knows, and Andy knows, and we know that those things happen because Andy hasn't learned to take care of things. Now June is having trouble with her things. Gretchen's head has come off, and June wants Mother to fix it. Suddenly, Andy says, "Let me fix it." Right now, he's going to start showing that he can take care of things. Don't you suppose Andy is glad to do something to make up for being so mean to June? Besides, it's fun fixing things. When you're through, it's more fun to know you've done a good job. And it's fun to see how much people appreciate it. Now Andy knows he has friends. He thinks he can fix that jet airplane, too. But some things can't be fixed. And no fixing will find things you've lost, such as Andy's favorite present. No, Andy will have to take care of his things all the time. He'll begin right now by putting his jacket and cap away where they belong. Then he'll know just where to find them tomorrow morning. That's another one of his responsibilities. But uh-oh, there's a button missing. Well, Mother will be glad to sew on a new button, especially now that Andy is helping her by looking after his clothes. Andy's going to look after his other things, too. He's going to have a certain place for each thing and keep each thing in its place. Andy knows one way to show Fred and the kids at school that he's no little kid. And he's really quite grown up. Ever since then, Andy's been thinking about how grown up it is to take care of things. When he cleans up his wagon, he thinks about how often he sees the firemen working over their fire engines and equipment to make sure everything is always ready to use. Andy has some new fish in place of his tadpoles. When he feeds them, he thinks of Cousin Len, who helps his father take care of the cows on his dairy farm, where Andy likes to visit. When Andy picks up things that might cause someone to fall and hurt himself, he thinks of his friend the policeman, who helps the children go to and from school safely. Andy has learned, too, that some things break very easily. So he must be especially careful of them and use them just as they're supposed to be used. That's being grown up, too. Many men work with things made of glass and with other things that have to be handled very carefully. Some things that are fun to do are also messy. But Andy has learned to clean up the mess as soon as he's through. After all, doesn't Mother spend a great deal of time washing dishes and cleaning up after the family has eaten? And when Father does his jobs about the house, doesn't he clean up and put away the tools? Yes, cleaning up after yourself is a grown-up way to behave. And what's more, you'll know you've done something that's a real help to your family. Taking care of things is a real help at school, too. You just know Miss Ballard appreciates Andy's help. And nobody thinks of Andy as a baby anymore. Everybody likes Andy. Today, Andy and June are having fun helping Father take care of the yard. But what is Andy so excited about? Do you know what? He's found his special present. What do you suppose it is? It's a camera. Andy's own camera that he got on his birthday. Of course, it's a little dirty. Andy should never have left it outdoors. Can they fix it? Father thinks they can fix it this very afternoon. In a little while, the camera is fixed. What's more, now that Andy has shown that he can be responsible for taking care of things and using them properly, Father thinks he's big enough to use the camera and take real pictures. Andy wants to take a picture of Fred, the boy who came to see the camera the day Andy couldn't find it. Remember? Now Fred is glad to play with Andy. He knows that Andy is not too little to be a friend. If you want people to know that you're growing up, learn how to take care of things. You'll have more fun, too.
Okay, now that you're all responsible and whatnot, we're going to teach you another very, very important lesson in how to be organized. You know, folks, we all have things that we do in our daily lives, our routines, if you will. In other words, we call them habits. And we want you to develop once again, good habits. Habits.
It's a little late for tears, isn't it, Barbara? Even though you didn't know it was going to happen today, you've still had your whole life to prepare for it. Of course, you've gotten into the habit of not being prepared. And now it's a little late, isn't it? You're a creature of habit, Barbara. We all are. Unfortunately, not all of your habits are good ones. This was how your day started. Started wrong. Your neighbor, Helen, is a creature of habit, too. But she got up when the alarm went off. Because, Barbara, that's what she really had in mind when she said it. Helen has trained herself to know what she's going to do, in what order, and where the things are to do it with. She really doesn't have to think about it. She already knows what clothes she's going to wear today. As it turned out, it was a special day for Helen, too. But she makes a habit of being ready for special days. She starts by having a place for things and keeping them there. She uses taste in selecting her clothes. But more than that, she keeps them clean and mended. And she's able to match the right skirt with the right sweater. This was going to be a special day for you, but you hadn't gotten very far with your preparations for it. Was your whole family asleep? No, your mother was up. Had been for an hour.
Barbara! Barbara, get up. You'll be late for school.
Does she have to do this every morning, Barbara?
Barbara, do you hear me?
If your mother stopped acting like a second alarm clock for even one day, you'd probably think it was a dirty...
Pete's sake, I hear you. I'm up.
You didn't seem at all appreciative. Even if you're not really well-mannered, you could make a habit of being civil. And you weren't really up when your mother called you. Little lies are such a firm foundation for big ones. You started your day with no plan at all. Looking for your hairbrush? Can't remember where you left it? You forgot other important things today. You meant to fix that collar, but you've gotten into the habit of putting things off. There are so many things you plan to do this coming Saturday or the one after that. Let's see. You found the algebra notebook you lost. The ski pants you meant to put away in the chest. The afghan you started to knit last summer. And, oh yes, the sweater you were looking for. You decided to cover the spots on your sweater with a scarf. You often do that. But you can't forget that the spots are there. If you had a habit plan for your mornings, you might get off to a decent start someday. Helen has a habit plan, and it includes a healthy breakfast and a pleasant word with her parents. All three always enjoyed Mr. Elliott's comments on the news. It was time to get started for office and school. Helen's dad would drop her on the way downtown. And who could ask for a nicer way to go to school? Your brother was ready, but your father couldn't wait for you. Or you could have driven to school with him. He used to enjoy that drive, too. Your eggs were cold this morning, but you had no time to be picky about food or to think about your diet. No time for milk or even to say good morning. No time for manners. You made a pretty picture with your rumpled skirt, your spotted sweater, and your hair in a tizzy. As usual, all your neighbors knew how late it was when you went by at your regular dog trot. You were late for school this morning, but then you're almost always late, and you're guilty about it. More so because your lateness is habitual. You're in a rut with a bad habit, and the longer you stick with the habit, the deeper the rut gets. When you saw Helen, you suddenly felt envious. But more than that, you felt a distaste for your sloppy ways. And you knew you could do something about them if only... That wasn't a happy thought, was it? Or do you always drum with your fingers? You were just chatting away with Helen when it happened, when the day suddenly turned into something special. You've never been friends with Ann Tolliver, and you've always wanted to be.
Hi. Hi. Some of the crowd's coming over to my house right after school. Do you think you two could make it?
Well, that'd be fun, Ann. I'd love to.
Swell. Well, what do you say, Bobby? Sure, thanks. Okay, see you later. Bye.
That'll be fun, won't it?
Oh, yes.
Bye.
Each school year sees new groups forming, old ones reforming. Yours is a changing social world, and the opportunities to be part of it must be taken when they arise. You knew this afternoon that you were making a bad impression, and you knew how easy it is not to be invited again, and how quickly you can be left out of the crowd. You were embarrassed by your messy hair and the fingernails you had neglected to clean. You worried about the spots on your sweater, Barbara. But what really showed up were your habits. You didn't find it very pleasant comparing yourself with the others.
What? I said, what do you think?
You weren't listening. You seldom do. It's a habit of yours.
I guess I don't know much about it.
They were talking about a popular book. All your friends were interested, but you never got into the habit of reading books.
The whole
problem was that Claudia wanted to be free to do all the things she'd never been allowed to do.
Well, that was her whole reason for leaving her family. And then she married back to the same kind of life.
Well, that's why I think the book's stupid. Why couldn't she have seen?
No, you added nothing to that conversation.
The trouble with me is getting started. I always have to force myself to do new things.
I'm the same way. I didn't even want to go to my first concert because I thought it would be too long-haired. Oh, but the music is wonderful. I'm going to go to the whole series.
My mother had to drag me to the museum. But they have a wonderful costume exhibit there. I got an idea for a new dress.
Oh, what kind?
You've never taken an interest in music or politics or art.
We always go to the beach. Every year we take a cottage at Essex.
You've only been once.
There's wonderful swimming and lots of boys. It's quiet where we go. And there are tennis courts at the hotels, too, and dances every weekend. It sounds grand. And it's just a short way to the city.
You couldn't help interrupting, could you? And you couldn't help stretching truth like a rubber band. We all like to talk about ourselves. But a soliloquy isn't a conversation. First, you didn't talk at all, and then you did all the talking. Conversation is a two-way street. But for you, it's either one way or a dead end.
Goodbye. I hope you had a very nice time.
Thank you, I did. Bye.
See you tomorrow. Goodbye, Barbara. I hope you enjoyed your stay.
Thank you.
Bye.
In all society, at all ages, we know that people are going to talk about other people. Unfortunately, our faults are often more discussed than our good points. And sometimes our good points are completely hidden by our faults. But perhaps worst of all is our own disappointment in ourselves and the remarks we imagine our friends are making about us.
Gee, I think dirty fingernails are horrible.
Maybe she felt shy. A spotted sweater isn't shyness. And bad manners are still bad manners no matter what you call them.
Now, in your own room, the memory of this day stands between you and your whole pattern of behavior. Where will you start? Your complexion? That starts with soap and water and goes on to regular meals and the right kind of food. Your hair? It's more than just a shampoo when you happen to think of it. Your clothes? Not just cleaned when your mother takes them away from you, but a system of cleaning. For all a pattern, a network of habits. Helen checks her clothes for cleaning when she takes them off. That's a habit of hers. This morning, Helen took her skirt from the front of the closet. Tonight, she hangs it in the back. That's a habit, too. One on the plus side. It gives clothes a chance to hang, rests the fabric. Tonight, Helen makes a plan for tomorrow. A what to wear, what to do, when to do it design for living. Helen has the habit of being ready for special days. Good habits save time and energy and give us greater freedom to do those extra things we want to do. Yes, a good start. But these improvements are not yet habits, not by any means. They must happen again and again until they fit into the fabric of the days without conscious thought. If you try, really try, you can root out the poor, accidental habits and establish in their place the good habits approved by custom, accepted by society. Across the street, Helen's light goes out. Reasonable hours are part of her pattern. And you, Barbara, well, you've had a hard day. But staying awake to think about it won't help it any. Go to bed early for a change. Give yourself a good start on a new day.
Well, folks, that last lesson should just about do it for how to be organized. You should have all the tools that you will ever need to have great organization skills. Until next time, I'm Joe Gigliotti, your host, your guy, your teacher, your professor, and a PhD. I thank you for watching this latest episode of How to Live. We'll see you next time.